That winter in Boston was harsher than any I had ever experienced. Outside the window, thick snow fell, blanketing the rooftops and silent streets in white. The sky was as gray as the heaviness in my heart. Avery Parker, 34 years old, sat quietly by the window, my hands gently caressing my rounded belly after 6 months of pregnancy. The warmth from the baby inside me made my throat tighten with emotion. The joy of becoming a mother, something I had waited and hoped for all these years, had finally come true. But within that joy lingered a nameless unease. I whispered softly, my voice meant only for my child. "Sweetheart, I'm counting the days until I see you. You will be the light of my life." My words melted into the frigid air, blending with the howling wind outside. To reach this day, I had endured many tear-girled nights. I was a financial analyst, a career admired by many, but in my heart, my greatest longing had never been professional success. It was for a home filled with the laughter of children. For years, my husband Tyler and I tried, but we couldn't have a baby. There were times I almost gave up, believing fate had not meant for me to receive that sacred gift. But then, when hope seemed gone, a miracle arrived. I glanced at the wedding photo on the bookshelf. In the picture, Tyler, the man I once believed would be my rock for life, smiled brightly, his arms wrapped tightly around me. He was a chief engineer at a biotech company, intelligent, calm, always knowing how to ease my heart. We had met at an alumni seminar at our old university. He had approached me when he noticed I looked lost in the crowd. "Avery, do you remember when we were on the same research team in college?" he asked, his eyes warm and friendly. Honestly, I didn't remember, but our conversation that day flowed so naturally, and love found us before I even realized it. 2 years of dating were 2 sweet years, filled with moments that made me feel like the happiest woman in the world. Tyler's proposal, by the Charles River under the moonlight, brought me to tears. "I want to walk through life with you, Avery. Will you marry me?" His voice trembled. I nodded, overwhelmed by a joy beyond words. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood on the south side of the city, cozy enough to nurture our shared dreams. We had already chosen a room for our future child, painted light blue with fluffy clouds on the ceiling. It all painted a sweet future, just waiting for our baby to make it complete. But the journey to find our little angel wasn't easy. So many times I held a negative pregnancy test, so many nights I buried my face in a pillow and cried until I had no tears left. I even considered adoption or medical intervention. And yet, when I thought all hope was lost, I discovered I was pregnant, completely, naturally, without any assistance. That day, when I saw the 2 red lines on the test, my hands trembled uncontrollably. "Tyler, I'm pregnant," I stammered. Tyler hugged me tightly, his eyes glistening with emotion. Happiness seemed to burst within me, filling every empty space in my heart. Now, as I sit here in the bitter cold of winter, I still remember that moment as if it were yesterday. Yet, mixed with my joy is a quiet worry, a vague sense that something isn't quite right, waiting just ahead. I closed my eyes, placed both hands on my belly, and told myself, "It's okay, Avery. Everything will be fine. You and your baby will get through this." Outside, the snow continued to fall thickly, but inside me a flame of hope still burned quietly. I still remember clearly the first time I met Tyler again, a moment that seemed accidental but opened a new chapter in my life. It was a chilly autumn evening in New York when I returned for an alumni seminar at our old university. I expected nothing more than to hear a few speeches and leave quietly, but in the crowded hall, that warm, deep voice spoke behind me. "Avery, you still like to stand alone and observe, just like back in the lab, huh?" I turned around, surprised to see the man with deep green eyes and slightly long brown hair now touched with silver at the temples. It was Tyler, a classmate from our biomaterials course whom I had barely noticed back then. He smiled, a gentle smile that seemed to warm the air around me. At that moment, I didn't know if it was fate or just coincidence. We talked by the buffet table, surrounded by soft background music and warm golden lights. I realized the once reserved Tyler had become a confident, composed man. He shared about his research work at a biotech firm in Boston, where he led a team developing new biomedical materials. His stories weren't dry at all, they were captivating and filled with passion. I, someone who thought joy only came from numbers and spreadsheets, found myself drawn into his world. When the seminar ended, Tyler suggested we take a walk by the Hudson River. We walked through the thin mist, listening to the gentle waves beneath the bridge. Tyler said, "I always admired your determination. Back then, I didn't dare talk much because I was afraid of being rejected." I laughed, my heart suddenly feeling strangely warm. From then on, phone calls and emails between Boston and New York bridged the distance. Weekend train rides shortened it even more. Love came naturally, like breathing, as if we had been waiting for each other at the intersection of two seemingly distant worlds, finance and science. 2 years together were 2 sweet years, each memory filled with love. I remember a spring day when Tyler took me for a walk around Boston Common. Cherry blossoms bloomed, painting the sky pink. He stopped beneath a large tree, took out a small blue velvet box and opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Avery, I can't promise you a life without storms, but I promise to hold your hand through them all. Will you marry me?" I couldn't hold back my tears, all I could do was nod, overwhelmed by emotion. We had a small, cozy wedding by the beach in Maine where I had always dreamed of watching the sunrise, with the one I loved. Afterward, we bought a red brick house in the Boston suburbs. Close enough to the city for work, but far enough to find peace. Every corner of the house was shaped by us. From the bookshelf where I neatly stacked my favorite finance books to Tyler's workspace, filled with science books and research models, the attic room was painted light blue with glow-in-the-dark stars that Tyler carefully placed one by one on the ceiling, because he said, "So our child can look at the stars every night." Life back then seemed perfect. Evenings, cooking together, weekends strolling through the park or sitting by the fireplace reading. Friends called us the perfect couple, and I believed it. I believed that this happiness would last. But now, as I sit alone by the window in the freezing winter, remembering those days, my heart aches. Some things that feel eternal turn out to be fleeting, like passing clouds. Perhaps it's because those memories were so beautiful that I don't want to believe the unease quietly creeping into my heart. Outside, the snow keeps falling, covering all traces, leaving only the sound of the wind howling at the window. And I know, beyond this peaceful frame, the real storm is silently approaching. I still remember those early days when I found out I was pregnant. Tyler held me close and whispered in my ear, "You have no idea how happy I am, Avery." Every night, he searched baby names online with me, talked about painting the nursery, picking out a crib. Some nights, I'd wake in the middle of the night and see him at his desk, scribbling ideas for the baby's room, his face full of excitement. Back then, I believed life had given me everything. But then, something began to change. Quietly, like the falling snow outside that covers the roads I thought I knew so well. From the middle of the 4th month of pregnancy, Tyler started coming home late more often. At first, he'd text, "I have meetings with partners, don't wait up for me, Avery." I reassured myself that he was truly busy, that his new work at the lab was pulling him into important projects. But over time, his messages became shorter, colder. "Eat first tonight. I'll be home late." One night, I sat waiting at the dinner table, watching the candles burn low, the food go cold. When the key turned in the lock, I forced a smile, but he barely glanced my way before hurrying upstairs, mumbling about a report he needed to finish. At my prenatal checkups, I hoped Tyler would come along to hear the baby's heartbeat, to see our child on the ultrasound screen, but every time I asked, he'd excuse himself. "I'm sorry, I have a conference that day. I can't cancel a meeting with the board." At first I accepted it, telling myself to be understanding. But slowly loneliness crept in. And every time I stepped into the clinic, I felt a lump in my throat seeing other couples holding hands, eyes shining with happiness. I didn't want to doubt the man I loved, but there were signs that weighed on my heart. One night, Tyler left his phone on the kitchen counter when he stepped outside for an urgent call. The screen lit up with a message. "Thank you for last night's dinner. I can still see the look in your eyes." My heart felt crushed. I wanted to believe it was sent by mistake or from a close colleague, but those words, the intimacy in them, made all the excuses I tried to muster. I watched Tyler through the window as he left the house that night, He said he was going to the office for documents, but instead of heading toward work, he turned the car toward downtown. A flood of thoughts I hadn't dared face came rushing in. I sank into a chair, hands trembling, eyes stinging. Was I losing the man I had placed all my trust in? A few days later, while tidying the living room, I found a restaurant receipt in Tyler's coat pocket. I picked it up, eyes fixed on the words Maison Belle, a pricey French restaurant where we used to go when we first fell in love. The date and time matched the night he said he was working late. The amount, over $250, left me speechless. If it had been a meal with colleagues, why go somewhere so fancy? I sat quietly by the window, clutching the crumpled receipt. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the small garden where Tyler and I once dreamed of building our first snowman with our child. Everything around me suddenly felt unfamiliar. My mind swirled with questions. What is he hiding from me? Has everything I believed in been an illusion? That night, when Tyler came home, I looked at him for a long time. He stepped inside, brushing snow from his coat, offering a faint smile. "I'm sorry. Today was really busy." A slight motion was all I managed, my strength too gone for speech. As he walked away, his silhouette cast on the floor beneath the warm light felt heartbreakingly distant. And I knew the real storm was nearing, ready to sweep away the dream of happiness I had tried so hard to hold on to. After countless sleepless nights, my mornings grew heavier than ever. I woke with dizziness so strong I had to grip the bedframe just to stand. My 6-month belly already made me tired, but this felt different. My head spun, my stomach knotted like I was newly pregnant again, even though I knew that phase should have passed long ago. Tyler seemed to notice my decline. Every morning he made me herbal tea or decaf coffee, saying it would help me feel better. "I read this is good for pregnant women. Try it, okay?" His voice was warm, his eyes full of care. I forced a smile, swallowing the bitter drink, hoping it would help. But strangely, after each cup, the nausea worsened. The dizziness came more often. I started losing weight. One foggy morning I looked in the mirror, the bathroom light falling on my pale face. My cheeks had hollowed, dark circles etched under my eyes, my long hair messy and clinging to sweat-soaked skin. I placed a hand on my belly, feeling the baby's weak movements. A deep unease gripped my heart. Something was wrong. My body was betraying me. Or something else was quietly harming both me and my baby. Tyler kept bringing me coffee every morning. He watched as I took small sips, smiling gently. "I just want you to feel better, Avery. I hate seeing you so tired." I knew, by then, I wasn't clear-headed enough to tell truth from falsehood. I kept telling myself, "You're overthinking. Tyler loves you, he'd never harm you or the baby." But my body didn't listen. After each cup, I felt even more drained. One night, after violent nausea left me collapsed by the sink for nearly an hour, I dragged myself back to bed. Tyler came in, his eyes filled with worry. "I think you should see a doctor. I'm really worried about you." I stared at him for a long time, torn inside. I wanted answers too. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "Don't just listen to his words. Watch what he does." The next morning, I tried to eat some plain porridge Tyler made, but my mouth tasted bitter. When he placed the coffee cup on the table, I gave a faint smile. "I'm not drinking it today. The smell makes me want to throw up." He froze for a moment, then quickly covered it with a nod. "I understand. Rest up. I have to get to the lab." I sat there long after he left, weighed down by 1,000 unspoken questions. By noon, I decided to go see the doctor on my own. Without telling Tyler, I took a cab to the familiar OB clinic. On the way, I felt so nauseous, I had to close my eyes to steady myself. Every time I thought of the baby, I clenched my hand over my belly, praying that everything would be okay. At the clinic, during the initial checkup, the doctor's face showed a hint of worry. "Avery, I'm concerned about your rapid weight loss and your complexion. We need to run additional blood tests and an ultrasound today." I tilted my head gently, my mind racing with unease. In the quiet ultrasound room, I stared at the screen, seeing my baby's blurry image in the pale blue light. I waited for reassurance, but the doctor remained silent, eyes fixed on the screen, tense. "How is my baby, doctor?" I asked, my voice trembling. She turned to me, speaking slowly. "The heartbeat is still there, but it's weak. There are abnormal signs with the placenta. I need you to stay for monitoring." My heart tightened. Hot tears streamed down as I gripped my belly. Outside the window, the Boston sky was gray, and the road ahead felt more uncertain than ever. After the ultrasound and blood draw, they took me to a private room to wait for the results. The air felt heavy, the only sound the ticking of the wall clock, each beat pressing deeper into my growing fear. I looked down at my belly and whispered, "Sweetheart, I'm here. I'll protect you." Before long, the doctor who had followed my pregnancy from the start came in. The gentle face I knew now carried a serious expression she couldn't hide. She sat across from me, her voice low but clear. "Avery, we've reviewed your blood work and ultrasound results. I need to have a serious talk with you." I tilted my head in response, the dampness of my palms betraying my tension. "There's something wrong with my baby, isn't there, doctor?" My voice shook. Dr. Riley sighed, her eyes full of concern. "The weak heartbeat is something we need to monitor closely. But more seriously, we found a small amount of a foreign substance in your blood, a medication used medically to terminate pregnancies when necessary." My heart felt crushed. I shook my head over and over, refusing to believe what I'd heard. "That's impossible. I haven't taken any medication. I've been so careful, I even avoided foods that aren't good during pregnancy." Dr. Riley gently placed her hand over mine, her voice softening. "Avery, this substance couldn't appear in your body on its own. Either you ingested it unknowingly, or someone gave it to you without your knowledge." Her words struck like lightning. I slumped back in my chair, my breathing quickening. In my mind, scattered images and details began to piece together into a horrifying picture. The cups of coffee Tyler brought me every morning, the way he watched as I sipped, his refusals to come to appointments, the late nights, the restaurant receipts, the strange text messages. I clutched my belly. "No, it can't be. Tyler loves me, and our baby, he would never." But even before I finished, I heard the doubt in my own voice. A terrible truth was slowly drowning me. "We've notified the hospital security team. I advise you not to return home right now, Avery. You and your baby need to stay safe until we can clarify everything." Dr. Riley's tone was firm but kind. Drops escaped my eyes, falling unchecked. I no longer knew if they came from heartbreak, fear, or shock at the nightmare unfolding. "Doctor, does my baby still have a chance?" "Yes, Avery. The heartbeat is still there, though weak. We'll do everything we can to support you and your baby, but from now on, every decision has to be made with great care." I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling as I dialed Emily, the lawyer friend I trusted most. Emily's voice came through, calm and reassuring. "Avery, listen. Don't panic. You need to follow each step carefully now. I'm coming to the hospital right away, and I'll contact the police." I tilted my head slightly, the gesture lost over the phone. In that moment, I understood there was no turning back. I had to find the truth. Because now, it wasn't just my life at risk, but the life of the innocent baby inside me. Outside the window, snow kept falling, quietly covering the road in front of the hospital in white. But inside me, a flame of determination had been lit. I whispered through my sobs, "I won't let anyone hurt you. Whoever it is, I'll protect you to the end." In the quiet hospital room, I stayed by the window, my unsteady hands resting on my belly, as flakes continued to cover the world outside. Emily arrived quickly after the call. She came in, placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice firm yet gentle. "Avery, you need to leave here now. I've called the police. The priority is your safety and the baby's. I'll take you to my place, okay?" I looked at her, unable to stop the tears that fell unchecked. I had no strength left to ask or argue. I just knew I needed to be rescued from this nightmare. Emily helped me up. Before we left, Dr. Riley reminded me, "We've sent the blood sample to the authorities. They'll coordinate the investigation. Avery, stay in touch with us. And remember, don't go back to the house alone." Outside, The icy wind stung my face, clearing my mind a little. On the way to Emily's apartment, my heart was in turmoil. Every memory, every tender look, every promise Tyler had made now felt false and empty. I couldn't bear to think that the man I had trusted and loved most could do something so cruel. When we reached Emily's home, a cozy apartment on the edge of the city, I nearly collapsed onto the sofa. Emily made me a warm cup of tea, sat beside me and gently squeezed my hand. "Everything will come to light. The police will protect you." That night I got a call from Inspector Miller, the officer handling the case. His voice was steady, decisive. "We've received information from the hospital and the medical evidence. A team has been sent to your house to collect coffee samples, devices, anything related. We need your cooperation, and do not contact the suspect until instructed." All I could do was softly reply, "I understand." The next morning, the first message on my phone was from Tyler. "Where did you go? I'm worried about you and the baby. Come home, Avery." I didn't respond. Emily advised, "Stay silent." Every call, every message could be evidence. The police had installed a tracker on my phone the night before. I handed everything over to them, reminding myself not to let my heart lead me astray. Just 2 days later, the police arrested Tyler at the lab where he worked. The news came from Inspector Miller. "He denies everything, but we found traces of the miscarriage-inducing substance in the leftover coffee at home, along with some suspicious experimental files on his personal computer. We'll continue the questioning." I listened, my heart breaking. I had hoped there might be some mistake, that it was all a misunderstanding, but the truth only grew crueler. 3 days later, inside the police station's interrogation room, Tyler Ahahi, the husband I once loved, finally bowed his head and confessed. He admitted to secretly mixing the substance into my coffee every morning, because he didn't want this baby to be born. He had someone else, a coworker from his research team named Rachel, who was carrying the child he truly wanted. I heard his confession through the police transcript, feeling empty inside. Tyler once said he loved me, once held my hand and made vows before family and friends. But now, to him, I and the baby I carried were nothing but a burden. At the final in-person meeting in the interrogation room, I looked at him. The man who had once been my whole world. He was no longer my Tyler. His hair was disheveled, his eyes vacant, his face gaunt. I asked, my voice hoarse, "Why didn't you just tell me? Why not choose to leave me instead of harming me and our baby?" Tyler gave a bitter, hollow laugh. "Because I was afraid of losing everything. You're the perfect wife everyone admires. If I divorced you, I'd lose my career, my reputation. But if you lost the baby, no one would blame me." I stared at him for a long time, then quietly turned away. Inside me, a door had slammed shut. Tyler's trial took place on a May morning, as the last cold winds of winter had just left Boston. I sat on the witness stand, gripping the small handkerchief Emily had given me, my eyes fixed on the man who had been my husband, my once trusted safe harbor, now sitting with his head bowed, silently facing justice. Tyler looked worn, his once neatly combed hair in disarray, his eyes avoiding every gaze in the courtroom. The evidence collected by the police, from the coffee samples containing the drug to the data from his computer, was enough to convict. Tyler's defense attorney tried to blame work stress, a mental health crisis. But every excuse fell flat in the face of the bare truth. He had plotted to harm me and our baby just to protect his image, his career, and his future with his lover. The judge read the sentence in a firm, unwavering voice. The defendant, Tyler Parker, is sentenced to 15 years in prison for the intentional poisoning of his wife, endangering the life of the unborn child, with aggravating factors related to conspiracy and betrayal of family trust. The gavel came down, ending the trial. In that moment, I closed my eyes, feeling both relief and deep pain. It was over. A part of my life had truly closed. Tyler's career collapsed completely. The company fired him, and the research he had once been so proud of was pulled for review. His name appeared on headlines everywhere. Brilliant scientist brought down by plot to poison his own wife and child. Friends and colleagues who once praised him now turned their backs in contempt. I felt no satisfaction. I only felt sorrow for the man I once loved who chose such a dark path. 3 months after the trial, I went through a difficult labor at the hospital. In those hours, I thought I wouldn't have the strength. But then a faint cry filled the delivery room, lighting a spark of hope in me. My daughter, little Emma, was born, small and fragile, her eyes barely open, as if not ready to face the world. The doctor brought her to me, her voice gentle. "She's very strong, Avery. There's still a lot we'll need to monitor, but she made it through." I looked at Emma, tears streaming down. Her little lips looked like mine, her jet black hair like Tyler's. I couldn't resent this child. She was innocent. Though doctors warned she might face developmental challenges, to me, Emma was still a miracle. My strength to keep going. Those early days caring for her weren't easy. Emma cried often, had mild fevers, and needed frequent hospital visits. There were moments I thought I might break. But every time I saw her smile, in a rare, peaceful moment, I found new strength. I knew from then on she and I would walk a path filled with challenges, but also with endless love. Emily was always by my side, my strongest support. She helped me arrange remote work, handled unfinished legal matters, and most importantly gave me the confidence that I wasn't alone. One afternoon, holding Emma in my arms, I gazed out the window at the early summer sunlight falling over our small garden. I whispered to her, "You are my reason to be strong, no matter how rough life gets. I promise no one will ever hurt you again." In the soft light, I saw her peaceful face, and I knew that though the road ahead was long, I was ready to keep walking. For her, for myself, and for a brighter future. After those stormy months in Boston, I knew I couldn't stay among the painful memories any longer. When Emma turned 1, I decided to pack up and leave the house that had once held both happiness and tears. I moved to San Diego, a coastal city with year-round sunshine and streets lined with bougainvillea. I wanted my daughter to grow up in a clean, peaceful environment, and it was a place where I could start life over. Our new home sat on the outskirts of the city, just a few blocks from the beach. It wasn't large or fancy, but it was cozy, with 2 bedrooms and a small garden filled with wild daisies. Every morning, I opened the windows to let the sea breeze fill the room, listening to the waves as my heart felt a little lighter. Emma grew more slowly than other kids her age. She often got sick, and her walking and talking came later, but her bright eyes and sunny smile always chased away my worries. One time, when I took Emma to a special needs center in the city, I met other parents in similar situations. We talked, shared our struggles, our fears, and our fragile hopes. From those meetings, an idea formed. Why not create a space where we could all grow stronger together? I started a support group for parents of special needs children. Seeds of Hope. At first, just a few families joined, but over time more came. We organized gatherings, invited experts to share knowledge and experience about care and education. In the beginning, I worried whether the group would last, but the smiles and thanks from other parents gave me strength. I no longer felt alone on this path. It was at one of these group meetings that I met Robert, a single father in his 40s with sad but determined eyes. He brought his twin boys, both with speech delays. Robert shared that his wife had died in a car accident when the boys were just 2. Since then, he'd played both mom and dad, raising the boys on his own. The way Robert gently encouraged and patiently guided his sons touched me deeply. Robert didn't say much, but his eyes overflowed with love and hope every time he looked at his children. After a few meetings, we started talking more. He asked about Emma and shared tips from his own journey. For the first time in years, I felt my heart soften at the sound of a sincere voice, at the presence of someone who understood what I had been through. One afternoon, while Emma and I were at a nearby park, Robert and his sons ran into us. He invited us to sit with them on the grass beneath a shady tree. Emma giggled as she watched the boys play with leaves. I looked at my daughter, then at Robert, and wondered, after all the storms, had I met someone who truly listened and understood? We made no promises, took no hurried steps, but in that sunset glow with the sea breeze brushing past, I felt myself starting to open up to a new hope. Maybe the road ahead would still be full of challenges, but I wasn't afraid anymore, because beside me now were not just Emma, but friends and companions who shared and strengthened me. And I believed my daughter and I had truly begun a new chapter, a chapter of peace, resilience, and love. Looking back on the journey, I realized that every pain, every loss only made me stronger in protecting my daughter. From a woman who thought she had fallen, I stood back up, building a new life with Emma in a place full of sunshine and hope. Now every one of her smiles is my greatest encouragement, reminding me that true love isn't made of empty promises, but of steadfastness, compassion, and companionship. The road ahead is still long, but I'm ready to keep going, with faith and a peaceful heart. What do you think about my story and my journey to protect my little girl? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more touching and inspiring stories about life and family.